Welcome, welcome, welcome to episode 55 of Teachers in Business. This week, we are going to talk about the only diet you need here in 2022. And listen, first, let me be the first to tell you that no one likes a diet. Like, I'm going to totally admit to that. I am one of those human beings that the minute you tell me I can't have something, I want six of them. So, whether it's for food or anything else, dieting has never been something that was effective for me because my inner 5-year-old does not like to feel like it's without anything. The diet I am talking about today is something I think of as, and I teach to clients as a noise diet. It is one of the most effective tools that I know to reduce the amount of basically just input that's coming into your world. The reason that this really matters for me, and I'm talking about it on this podcast, is because I know that in the world, in the brains of people who are or were teachers, we like nothing better than to think about something we want to learn and then go learn all the things about it. So this means when you're starting a business, you go and you sign up for the freebie and you take the course and you take this other course and you read that book by that lady that the guy in the podcast referenced, and you listen to things and then you follow this expert and this one and that one and you get more emails and you're deep diving into all the stuff. But all of a sudden there's a lot of stuff and so much stuff. The other problem is that so much of the stuff all tells you completely different things, right? I can remember this at the start of my business where, I was trying to figure out how to do, I forget, like an elevator pitch or something else. So I was like on Google researching formats. And they were like, it should have 10 words. It should have 100 words. It should have 1,000 words. It should take you 30 seconds. It should take you 3 minutes. Da, 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 da. It just made it so much worse because I went from not knowing the options to knowing all the options, and it made me paralyzed in a lot of ways. So today we're going to talk about what to do when you're in that place where you're like, oh my gosh, so much input and it's overwhelming. And that's the whole point of a noise diet. So before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about Charting Business Success, which is my small group program, only because this past week, I think we had a really interesting meeting because we were talking about problems in our business. It's a small group. It is really different, I think, from any other small group program that I have connected with or been a part of, because it really is truly small. This round is 3 business owners and me. The max is 5. So we really do get to dive in really carefully into individual things going on, individual businesses, individual goals. There's no hiding in this group, which is both a blessing and a curse. But I think the format of it where we are all being coached, like I am doing all the coaching, but we are all collaborating together. Everybody has input, everybody's learning from each other, is really magical. And this past week, one of the things we were talking about is problems in our businesses, like listing out things that feel like problems and figuring out how to decide if they really are. So often things that feel like problems in business are really just like things that feel uncomfortable. There's a difference between a problem and a to-do and something that feels uncomfortable, but our brain just likes to tell us they're all problems and we have to fix them. So what we're working to learn what the difference is in the group. And as a part of that conversation this week, I would say every member of the group had a really big aha or two. I mean, there were some tears, we laughed a lot, but everybody walked away, and all 3 of them over this past weekend messaged me separately to say that they had gotten something really spectacular. One is going to write a book about what she got, which is freaking like made me cry on my couch only a little bit. Another is probably going to make a really big business change that has been a long time coming, and I think she finally sees is possible. And the third is clear now on her offer and how to move to reach the goal she's working on right now, which is a very particular goal, in a way that she was not, and about, being kind to herself in the process. So we've all gotten really interesting things, all the members have. And I say this because another round of this group is starting in February, and you should join it. It is amazing how much we have accomplished, even just in the first 7 weeks of 16. And it is the most cost-effective version of this I have ever offered and will ever offer. It is wildly, wildly effective, and it's $1,000 for 16 weeks. It's crazy. If you have a problem you are working on in your business, if you have a goal that you want to reach by the end of June, middle of June, we're going to start in February and we will have you there in June. There is no substitute for this group. You have to come join it. It's so much fun. So that being said, let's talk about noise diet. So here are the ways I always know, and I will be first to admit I am on a bit of a noise diet right now. The way I know that it's time for me to dial back and use this tool is when I get really anxious, just in a generalized kind of anxious way, and where I'm like scrolling all the time on my phone, on news sites, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on all the things that I access. I read a lot of news, and the news starts to make me more and more anxious. It also is clear to me that it's time for a noise diet when I start to be like, oh my God, but how did she do that? And why can't I? When I start to get very imposter syndrome-y, and also when I just feel really confused all the time, because I know deep down that I have the answers in my business. Like I'm sure that I know how to figure it out. But when I start to feel really like, God, I don't know what to do, oftentimes it's just because there's too much flipping input. For you, you could feel overwhelmed. You could be anxious like I get. You could just have a lot of scrolling going on. It could be a lot of the same things. I see the same things in my clients. And so if that's you and you're like, oh, there's so much noise, there's so many different voices, there's so much input coming in, that is when you need to cut back. So the noise diet is real simple. It is to cut down what you have inbound at you right now by, about 50%, if not more. Some people do more drastic versions. So I will say for me, like I stopped reading the news for about a week. I'm like 8 or 9 days in, and I've read it like briefly for 10 minutes yesterday because there are some things I like to read about on Sundays. But short of that, I've really not been in it. The other thing I do is I start unsubscribing to things that are coming into my inbox and making me crazy. So for you, think about all of the people whose voices you're listening to right now. Think about the volume of that and see if you can have that. So it could be that you take the apps that you scroll most often off your phone. It could be you just close them for now. You just move them to a different page. What I do is I move those things to a back page on my home screen and I move them out of my vision. So I'm not even thinking about them. You might be that you unsubscribe to stuff. That's part of what I spent some time doing last week. I just was like picking and choosing things that are useful to me and things that are not, and unsubscribing. And that's totally okay. The other thing that I do pretty regularly is I mute people on Facebook, and not in a mean way. It's not like I don't want to hear from you. It's just that I can't hear from you right now. Like there's too much input. I can't. And sometimes they're friends. They're people I adore, but sometimes those are really strong voices. And I need them to just be quiet for a little while. If the voice is really strong and it's starting to like really not be a good influence, I will unfollow those people. You can unfollow someone without unfriending them. And so that's an option too. The other thing you can do is to, know if you're going to go scroll, because I have to be present in Facebook. I have to be present in LinkedIn. That's part of my business. You have to be present on your social platforms. So what I do is I set timers. Like if I'm going to go into Facebook, I'll set a 20-minute timer and I'll dig around and I'll do all the answering and participating that I want to do. And then I will stop when the timer goes off and I will go do other things and be done. It is a really useful way to approach, just keeping it in hand. The other thing that I do that I think could be really helpful is I go get lost in some other kind of reading. So what happens when I start to scroll a lot, it's because I don't have anything else to do with my brain. So, before the holidays, we had a puzzle out on the dining room table, and I would sit down when the kids were like relaxing before bed. I would sit down at the puzzle. Um, I also read a fair amount of fiction. And when I'm on a noise diet, it is only like trash murder mysteries because that's pretty much what I read. Do I have books that are like work books right now? Absolutely. I have two sitting on the table in the kitchen that like one of them's for a book club and I need to get reading, but I'm not quite ready to come back fully into the world yet. So I'm going to finish the book I'm on right now, solve the mystery of the aliens and move on. And then I'll read that one. It's okay. So for you, the strategy to cut down by 50% or so is half of it. It's, as much as you can stand to pull out. The other thing is like you're aiming for at least a week, happily would be 2 weeks. You know, then when you get to the end of 2 weeks or a week, you can start. I find it a week, it's not quite long enough for me. But at the end of 2 weeks, I find that I can start adding back in things I've missed, like voices I've wanted to hear, who I've been like, oh, I don't know, I haven't seen her in a while, what she's up to. Voices that I was having in my email that I was reading that I still want, those kinds of things. If you feel like it's missed, then put it back. And if you're like, haven't noticed, you didn't need it. And over time, the thing about a noise diet is I probably do this twice a year, but it's because over time, like you sign up for a freebie to get this thing because you're doing this research, because you have this new thing you're trying to do. And this is something you can do periodically. It's certainly something I do periodically. And it's not reasonable for me, at least, to stay at this level of like quiet all the time, because slowly the input grows. You make new friends, you meet new people, you have new connections, it grows. And then I have to be like, whoa, too much input, and dial it back. So this can work for you too. If you need help setting it up, figuring out what to get rid of, and figuring out how to hear yourself again, that is the other part of this that I teach clients. Once you have the noise level turned down and the volume is lower, then you have to figure out how to hear yourself again. And that is the second part of this, how to trust your judgment, how to be good with you being the decision maker, how to do the pieces that are important for you to know that you can always solve the problems, just like I do. I know you have the answers. I just don't know that you know you have the answers. So if you are looking for help with that, that's part of what I do. Send a message. It's sarah@torbycoaching.com, or come to Facebook or LinkedIn and send me a message and let's talk about it. So this is the only diet you need in 2022. You are perfect just like you are. We just need to hear more of you and less of what you're ingesting on an auditory and visual level. We want to hear from you. So this is the way to get it so that you are the loudest voice inside your head instead of somebody else. If you need help, once again, reach out. Otherwise, I'll see you here next week. Have a great week.